Hi everyone, today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about my COM 510 presentation at Cal Baptist University for Dr. Tingle. And my topic that I've been working on over the course of the semester is communication effectiveness of working remotely and distance learning. This is so important because in the past year, a lot has changed. And so over the past decade, it's been preparing for this moment when everyone has to go online. So over the past few decades, technology has made it possible for people to work from anywhere at any time. And many authors have spent years discussing this, and it's important to look at how technology has developed into a place that it's possible for people to work from anywhere, study from anywhere. They can travel the globe. It gives so much flexibility to life, and it has become a staple for many across the globe. But with the onset of the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, employees and students were forced to work from home for their health and safety. Many places were not allowing them to stay at their facility any longer and be around their coworkers, and so many had to go home, which was a major transition for a lot of universities and a lot of corporations because there wasn't a lot of preparation unless there was already online classes in place and already people working remotely. But not everyone was before this, so it was a turning point for many. And so there needs to be more resources available for employers and universities to discover where miscommunication is occurring. So a lot of professors even weren't trained in the online world before the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was a very sudden shift and it was very rapid. And miscommunication happens when there's misunderstandings and people aren't prepared for these kinds of things. They aren't utilizing their resources. And so more resources needs to be presented to employers and universities in order to make it easier for employees and students to have the best experience possible and to be the most effective without struggling with the miscommunication gap. So the literature review was written for the research trends to use technology and gaps of communication. So basically we're looking at literature that's been written in the past that is either written before the COVID-19 pandemic, so looking at those sources that were already transitioning to that online structure, and then how after that there's been a big effect on universities and corporations and how they're working to bridge the gap between communicating with others online. So there's a lot of information out there on that just because it is such a big topic right now. So my research question that I want to propose is, in the online environment, it should be researched how working remotely leads to decreased communication and therefore increased communication. But then I also want to look at how well do adults aged 19 to 24 feel they are prepared to work remotely and participate in distance learning. I think it's so important to focus on this age group specifically because there's research coming out that the younger millennials and the Gen Zs are really capable of taking on this technological learning, that they're ahead of the curve because they've grown up with technology. It's important for employers and universities to understand that this generation is coming in with the tools. They've grown up with technology. It's a part of who they are. And so that makes it a little bit easier for them. So that's why I want to focus on how they feel miscommunication is happening in the workplace, because they have a little bit of a step up than some of the older generations who are still learning technology. And so I want to study how they are prepared to work remotely and prepared in distance learning. My hypothesis is because communication can be delayed or misconveyed through working remotely and distance learning, miscommunication is increased among employees, students, and professors. There's so many things that can go amiss when you're communicating online. There isn't that influx of the voice. There isn't the body language that a student would be watching in class, for example, or if someone's conversing with their employer, they don't have the same body language, and even when they're video chatting, like that influx in the voice, it's a little bit different. And so there is a variation. And so it's important to look at how they feel that communication is different than it was before. So for the research design, we're going to look at and survey 4 groups of participants, and the participants are going to be asked to rate questions on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it doesn't apply to them, and 10 it strongly applies to them. So basically they're going to go down the list of all the questions, and they're going to say, does this really not apply to me, or does it apply to me very strongly, or am I somewhere in the middle? So that way you get a broad spectrum of how people are feeling. So the 4 groups, so the students and employees are going to be ages 19 to 24. So the first group is going to be 30 remote working employees, and then 30 traditional working employees for the control groups. This will be people working still in the traditional environment. And so a traditional environment is like an office job or somewhere where you're conversing with people. And then the 30 distance learning students, obviously online, they're taking online classes completely. And then the 30 traditional students, they're in classes every day, they are able to have conversations with the professor, and so on. So that's the control group. So the procedure would be to send out a mass email to college students and people within the 19 to 24 age group to get non-biased selection process. So this is going to get people in, so we only need 30 for each group, fill up the groups. So the questions, there's going to be like 2 surveys. So one survey is going to be tailored towards working remotely, and the other is going to be focused on distance learning, and depending on like which section they put themselves in, they can either select employee or student, and then they'll be given that assigned survey. So they're specially tailored, so that way someone who's working remotely isn't answering questions about conversating with their professor. And so they're going to have 30 questions to complete the survey, and once everything is completed, all of these 1 to 10 scales will be put in a bar graph to see where the trends lie. So in conclusion, it's going to be looked at how people feel like they're having miscommunications, or if they're not, in the online workplace. It's important because we want to look at the productivity for corporations and universities to see if this is actually being effective or if it's not so effective going forward as people are transitioning back out of the pandemic and back into the real world, to see if they want to keep more online or if they want to go back fully. So it's important for the productivity of the company, but also for the mental health. So a couple of the questions on the survey will be mental health related, just because it's important to see how people are faring through all of these hard times. And it's important to see how they prefer working from home because of the flexible hours, or if they prefer working at work just to get away from home so they're not as distracted at work, these kinds of things. So the limitations will be that it's going to be challenging right now to find face-to-face interactions, just because everyone's still kind of on lockdown to some degree. And only the study will be focusing on people 19 to 24 years of age, so it's not going to encompass the older generations and what they're facing there. So this is going to be a very limited study on those age groups. And the implications for future research is that maybe we need to utilize more technology to decrease communication. So this could be taking notes during a Zoom call and sending it out to everyone after, just so they have access to everything they need. So this is something that has really interested me over this semester, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more, and I'm excited to see where it goes.